Hi guys, so here we've got Boris Johnson PM lays out vision for post BS19 UK. So let's listen to what he has to say.
After all we've been through, it isn't enough just to go back to normal. We've lost too much. We've mourned too many.
So we're not going back to normal, guys. He's already stated that.
We've been through too much frustration and hardship just to settle for the status quo ante, to think that life can go on as it was before.
There we go, we're just going to continue like this, guys. That's what he's basically saying. Yeah, let's just keep social distancing, keep wearing your masks, stay at home as much as possible if we're going to lockdown, or bring in local lockdowns. It's not going to go back to how it was.
The plague, and it will not. Because history teaches us that events of this magnitude, wars, famines, plagues, events that affect the vast bulk of humanity.
Plagues. Is he referring to this one as a plague, is he? Oh my god.
As this virus has, they don't just come and go. They are more often than not the trigger for an acceleration of social and economic change, because we human beings will simply not content ourselves.
Social and economic change, I wonder what that's going to be like. Socialist, maybe? A socialist society? A different currency? Who knows?
They repair job. We see these moments as the time to learn and to improve on the world that went before. And that's why this government...
For you guys, not for the people. Jesus. Boris Johnson has vowed to defeat the BS19 and build a better country over the next decade in his leader's speech to a virtual Conservative conference. Evoking the UK's recovery from World War II, he has said he wanted to build a better Jerusalem with opportunity. Fucking hell, a new Jerusalem. He wanted to build a new Jerusalem with opportunity for all, improving housing and healthcare. What the fuck? He warned the UK could not return to normal after the pandemic, which would be... because he wants to change... This is how it's going to take away our freedoms, basically. That's what it's all about. More control over the population, more surveillance. It's exactly what it is. And he rejected suggestions he had lost his mojo and drivel. In his speech he delivered without the usual conference audience, he said he wanted to see the back of the BS. Yeah, of course, eventually, when you've got what you wanted, erosion of liberties, it has led to see the country flourishing again. Okay. He said, even in the darkest moments we can see the bright future ahead. Well, not for the people. Maybe the illusion that people get that it's going to be a bright future, but it isn't. And we can see how to build it, and we will build it together. Because why can you trust people that are lying about something that doesn't exist? You know what I mean? Let's go down a little bit more. Something that made me wonder. The PM said wind power could generate enough electricity to power every UK home by 2030. I mean, fucking hell. That's a massive change. That's a lot of wind turbines. Every UK home by 2030? Wind power? What, over like to 60 million people? Or is it going to be a lot less than 60 million people in 2030 because of the depopulation agenda? Is that why you'll be able to power every UK home by 2030? Here we go. Mr. Johnson said the pandemic had forced the government into massively expanding the role of the state, but warned against drawing the wrong economic conclusion for the crisis. Wrong economic conclusion for the crisis. He said for Conservatives, the increased bailouts and subsidies to prop up the economy go against our instincts, but there were simply no reasonable alternative. Okay. It's working then. There are many regard this state expansion as progress who wants to keep the state supporting furlough forever, keep people in suspended animation, he said. We Conservatives believe that way lies disaster. Lies. We Conservatives believe that way lies disaster, and that we must build back better by becoming more competitive, both in tax and regulations. Pledging to rebuild the dream home ownership for young, he vowed to help get more 20 to 30-year-olds on housing ladder by offering fixed rate mortgages available to those with just 5% deposits. In depths of the Second World War in 1942, when just about everything had gone wrong, the government sketched out a vision of the post-war New Jerusalem. Fucking hell, why did they say Jerusalem? Because everything's related to Israel. Everything goes back to Israel. A lot of things do anyway. As well as the Vatican. That they wanted to build. And that is what we are doing now in the teeth of this pandemic. We are resolving not to go back to how it was before, but for them to do better for themselves. That's what I'm looking at. To reform our system of government. To renew our infrastructure. Renew our infrastructure. That's an interesting one. To spread opportunity widely and fairly and create the conditions for a dynamic recovery that is led not by state but by free enterprise. Okay. You guys take this out as you see it and let me know what you think. Although the current situation is about as far from standard as anything in recent history, the PM's conference speech was, well, rather standard. It was a familiar Johnson cocktail, the kind of gags you might hear during after a dinner speech, and political message we have heard from him already or on several big set-piece occasions. Namely, that the government was fighting a war against this fake bug, but it will be vanquished and he will lead the country to a happier peace. I wonder why all this hardship that's going to talk about, they keep talking about, there's going to be more hardship, and I wonder what he means by that. There's an agenda about to roll out. It was thought through, though short on detail on how the country will make it to his new Jerusalem, and how, what does this mean? What? Oh yeah, if you're Jewish, that's great, isn't it? And how his promise would actually be made to happen. Does that matter? While conference speeches are often a big shot with window for leaders to talk to the country, it felt today that the Prime Minister didn't really take that opportunity. Instead, how long does this go on for? Perhaps to try and calm activist nerves, he pointed out that he was uncomfortable with the expansion of the state to deal with the BS-19. Still a believer in traditional Tory values. Yeah, he just wants to be in that seat to change the government, and that's exactly what it is. You know, that Winston Churchill of the, and I quote unquote Winston Churchill of the 21st century. It was seditious to suggest that he had lost something in his normal mojo. Mr. Johnson also addresses those who have criticised his leadership during the pandemic, saying it was wrong to suggest he has not fully recovered from his battle with the bullshit disease that didn't exist. It's a load of bollocks, make stuff up as you go along, which saw him hospitalised for weeks. I have read a lot of nonsense recently about how my own bout of COVID has somehow robbed me of my mojo. Well, we're getting into Austin Powers now. I've lost my mojo. And of course, this is self-evident drivel. The kind of fucking seditious propaganda. Yeah, say that in a fucking BBC News article. Propaganda. What propaganda? Propaganda comes from the government. That you would expect from people who don't want this government to succeed, who want to stop delivering the Brexit and fuck off. And all our manifesto pledges. We Conservatives conference, as we started it, with a symbolic testing system. It's a system. Millions of jobs at risk and income-passing government have lost control of the virus and holding Britain back. It's just a storyline, guys, in the ongoing narrative, which they always say narrative, don't they? Like it is a story, because that's exactly what it is. The time continues as they try to take more freedoms away from us and bring more excuses into why they're doing that, and people will just accept it. But we won't. We'll just continue to fight. Alright, thanks guys.